Hello, this is Gimme Empathy. I'm the host, Scott Mercer. I'm feeling better. I was sick, you may have heard on last episode. I'm all better now, and I'm going out to things again and not missing out on things anymore. Although I kind of am, because Brisbane's been a bit ridiculous for gigs for the last couple of months, really. It seems like every weekend there's a clash on. There's multiple really, really good gigs. And there are some tough decisions have to be made about what to go see. But better to have the choice, I guess, than, I don't know, live in Sydney or something. My guest on this episode is Jeremy Neale. You've heard him on this podcast before. I interviewed him in episode 9. He interviewed me in episode 25. You know him. You love him. Local Brisbane musician, been in a million bands. But this episode was not recorded for Gimme Empathy. It was recorded for an old podcast I kind of tried to get off the ground about 5 years ago called Only Talking Sense, which was going to be a kind of Brisbane music oral history sort of thing affiliated with the community radio station I volunteer at, 4ZZZ. So this interview has actually been broadcast before. It has been, I played it on my radio show Exit Stage Z in an abridged form back in the day. This is the first time the full version will be out there. I even made a little promo spot for Triple Z to play back in 2013. My girlfriend at the time, Sam, helped me out with it. And would you like to hear it? Okay, here it is.
You know Brisbane's favourite garage rock and party machine, Jeremy Neale, from his hit singles and wild live shows. Now hear the man himself tell his story in an extensive interview on our new segment, Only Talking Sense.
You know, how cool would it be to be in a band named after a dinosaur? The lack of subject matter as well, like a few of the songs are actually just written about Mortal Kombat.
Speaking to Triple Z in a no-holds-barred hour-long interview, Jeremy reveals the highs and lows of his time in bands such as Velociraptor, Tiger Beams, Teen Sensations, and of course his own solo band.
I mean, I face planted it on stage. I was singing on the bar at one point. I was singing on tables. And that was like the show that we shouldn't have messed up, and we did.
Tune in to Exit Stage Z this Saturday from 4 p.m. to hear Jeremy Neale in Only Talking Sense, a new interview segment that shares the stories of Brisbane music's best and brightest. Also available soon as a free podcast from the Triple Z website.
So behind the scenes of like Brisbane's most fun party band is that it was really tough to do.
Yeah, available soon as a free podcast to download. Only took 5 years. That's okay. Thank you to Sam as well for giving me permission to play that little spot there. So the context for this interview, it was recorded in May of 2013. Jeremy's band Velociraptor had released their mini album The World Warriors the year before, and they were about to embark on a European tour. Jeremy had just released the single In Stranger Times under his solo band, which would arguably become one of his best loved songs. We recorded at 4ZZZ in Studio 3 before it had soundproofing, so there's a fair bit of traffic noise in this episode. And we started off the interview by testing the mics. Ba ba ba
Ba ba ba ba ba ba ba baran. Ba 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 baran. Ba 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 baran. Please take my hand. Oh, ba baran. Good. I'm glad.
Glad we've tested them.
That's recorded and was part of the interview.
Yeah. Did you want anything else? I got your order, but do you want a cuppa or something? Or?
Oh, I'm sweet. Water dog. Thanks, man.
Good. Cool. Jeremy Neale, what was your favourite video game when you were 12 years old?
Whoa, 12. I'm trying to say it was NBA Jam, but I think that was later that I had NBA, earlier that I had NBA Jam.
Is it on Super NES or
Sega Mega Drive.
Mega Drive? Were you a Sega man?
I was a Sega guy.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. You were
totally.
that guy.
I was that guy.
Yeah.
Right up to Dreamcast even.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you hear that some guy is making a new game for the Dreamcast?
That is awesome.
There's like this guy who goes around, he just makes games for obsolete systems. He makes them for like the Jaguar, like old Amiga ones.
That's amazing.
It is, yeah.
I mean, because for a while, like, up until maybe 5 years ago, Japan was still churning out Dreamcast titles regularly.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's cool if, like, somebody in the West is, like, having a crack too, writing it for the English market.
They're still making PS2 games, aren't they?
I wouldn't be surprised, actually. PS2 was awesome.
Yeah, it went on forever.
You didn't have to, like, it wasn't about the graphics then. It was just, like, it would put some attention back into the gameplay or storyline if it was, like, an RPG. So
yeah, yeah. A lot of the stuff you do today in maybe not direct ways, but in subtle ways, seems a bit influenced by that sort of video game of the 90s pop culture. Like, when you were doing it at the time, did it feel like something, really cool, like, man, like you're part of a zeitgeist in a cultural thing that's happening, or were you just like a really nerdy guy?
I think most of my childhood was spent playing video games and like digesting popular culture, I guess, at the time, because I was never very athletic. I enjoyed sports, but I'm not very athletic. I don't know, video games were fascinating when I was a kid. Like it taught me a lot of things. It taught me how to read really good. You play a lot of like those PC RPGs that like are really text heavy, and often in like old English, and like it's good. I think all kids should have to play them.
And there's just like all this exposition before video games had like story editors or anything.
Yeah.
Of just like these programmer/writers who would just come up with all these fantasy stories and pull in all this detail you don't need, but it's just amazing.
Totally. Immerse yourself in the world. Like even like, I remember like, because I was a big fan of Ultima, it was just like, you could read all the books in Ultima as well, which I guess they do in all RPGs now, but like for the 90s, that was amazing.
Did you play Daggerfall?
No.
With the books? Oh, there was a second Elder Scrolls game, I think. It was the first one where it had like hundreds of books you could read in.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Get really behind the mythology.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's killer.
I definitely wasted summers in Morrowind reading books. Not even playing the game, just reading the damn books. So you're from Brisbane originally?
Yep.
Yeah, Brisbane boy, yeah. So yeah, in school, were there a lot of people like into games, or was it a bit nerdy?
No, there was still kind of like a good group of people. I think video games are really important through high school. It was kind of like, because what else would you do if you weren't playing video games? It was either video games or sport or the occasional party, I guess. A lot of high school time was dominated by Bomberman, if you ever played Bomberman.
Yeah.
Like that in 4-player mode is just incredible. I know Street Fighter had always been a huge part, so like Street Fighter had been always throughout the years, and I guess high school was a big time for that because you could still play Street Fighter at the arcades in that time period, which probably the only one you can find now is Street Fighter 4, but you used to be able to get like Street Fighter Alpha was at the arcades, and Street Fighter, X-Men versus Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes original one before you got Marvel versus Capcom 2 and whatever else. It was a good time for Street Fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. So you say you weren't athletic in school. Were you good at school generally, or?
I wasn't athletic, but I still played in teams. Like I still, I was just like one of the worst players in the team. So I still, played in the school soccer team. I still played in the basketball team. Still played in all the teams, just not. I wasn't the star athlete.
Yeah.
It was good fun though.
You were part of it, so you weren't like a social outcast or anything in school.
No, fortunately, like I've always managed to get along with people. Like it's been good. Like just being, if not, I wouldn't say a cool kid, but like being the token nice guy, which has been, it's been good. It's a good place to be, I think, because high school is a tough fucking time. Oh, sorry, I forgot where the question was going.
So what were you good at school?
Oh, good at school. Well, I was quite an academic for, until I got into the later years. Like I was like junior ducks in grade 10, and I should have probably taken out ducks, but I just kind of stopped caring so much. But I still did well. Got a decent OP. Was able to go to university. Never finished, but I was able to go.
And at what point did you start doing music?
Music happened pretty much first week of grade 8 at school, because it's like you went to kind of like, whatever the nights were that were about school.
Oh, like the subject selection nights.
Yeah. And they were like, oh, you can do music and you can learn drums if you want and guitar or whatever. And so I was like, yeah, I'll learn drums if it's free. So I started learning drums at school, which is not as fun as they say that it will be. They just give you a snare and a practice pad, and they're like, all right, now you're doing left, 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 right, left, and like marching band stuff and paradiddles and I can't even remember the names of any other things, but it's very, very structured, very basic
They're like
learning.
the combos in Street Fighter.
Totally.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I already knew them, already mastered them.
Can you play the Konami code on a drum kit?
Konami code?
You know, left, right, up, down, A, A, Y, Y. Oh, I forget what it is. You know, it's that code that they had in all of Konami's games. Like, it was a code, and it would always give you some sort of special cheat.
Oh, man, I remember this reminds me of this time when... wait, for starters, the one code I do remember was up, down, left, right, A, start, which was the level select for Sonic the Hedgehog, the original. Yeah. But I don't remember the Konami one, but I just remember being in primary school and telling a guy that there was a secret move that he didn't know how to do for Dalsim in Street Fighter. And I'd tell him a different combination of buttons every time, and he'd go to the arcades and try it out, and he could never do it. And I was like, oh, man, I must have got it wrong. It must have been this. Because I didn't have the money to play at the arcade, so I didn't know. But I wanted to sound like I knew a lot about the game that I couldn't be playing.
Because this was really before like all the kids were on the internet and could instantly tell if something was bullshit.
Yeah,
like there were urban legends about games were out there.
Yeah,
you know that Luigi was in Mario 64 and all this stuff.
Yeah, which was kind of exciting.
Times.
Yeah, totally.
So you started learning the drums in grade 8.
Yeah.
So, but was that like? Did you like for real start learning the drums then, or was that just your first exposure to music and you came back to it later?
Well, I'm trying to think because it's hard to timeline it exactly, but my best friend at the time didn't go to my school, but she was learning drums. And so I think around about the same time I was learning drums from her. And she was she could play most things already. Like at such a young age, she could already play guitar, she could already play drums, and she was a boss singer. So I guess I was exposed to music a lot through her and her older sister, who was the one that got her into music as well. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the combination between that. And then once you're in grade 8, you all start learning instruments. And then there's that kind of competition to keep up with everybody else. So like everybody's going home trying to get good at the instrument. And then like guitar entered the equation like a few months later because they ended up getting a guy in to teach group lessons. So then we were all learning guitar as a group, which then again spurred everybody on further to be like, you know, I went home and I learned how to play Layla last night. Yeah. You know, classic.
It's like everyone just wants to play guitar.
You want to play Shred Dog songs too. It's just like, you know, you actually do enjoy Led Zeppelin and trying to play Led Zeppelin when you're in grade 8. It's like, man, this is tough. It's good. And
so that's when you started guitar as well?
Yeah, I started guitar in grade 8 as well.
Like from the start, were you trying to write your own songs or just learn Shred Dog riffs?
Pretty much just learn Shred Dog riffs. I think I tried to write a song because as part of the music class, that was what we tried to do one day. It was like, okay, you need to write a song and it's part of your assessment. Because we had kind of at that point, maybe, I don't know if it was grade 9 or 10, but music started introducing like applied music, which is like the recording and all that kind of stuff of music. And so whilst it was, before it actually divided into like music theory or applied music, they gave you tastes of each. And so I think as part of the taste of applied music, it was like, hey, you're going to have to write your own original song. Yeah. Lyrics, melody, whatever. They didn't care if you couldn't sing, didn't care what you could play it on, but you just had to write your own song. So I think I had to do that a few times through that and sucked. Like it was gross. I couldn't remember how the songs go now, but if I could, it was just gross. It didn't feel like a real song.
What kind of song was it?
It was I would say a nothing song.
Nothing song.
You know, it's just what you would write if you didn't know anything about music. You're just like, all right, I know how to play power chords. I don't know anything about creating a melody. So you just got like, I would say it would have had just that really regular rhythmic spacing, just that really common kind of like, hey, 4 words fit in the space of a bar on each beat kind of thing. It would be something like that. You know, just like just the middle of the middle. Yeah.
And so at what point did you sort of start pursuing it a little bit more seriously?
I probably wrote the first song I thought was playable, maybe grade 11. So maybe 16 maybe. And that was for a pop punk band that I played bass in and sung for. And the band was named after our drummer, B-Rad, who you may remember was drumming for Ridgeback County and Harley's solo band and my own solo band for a while. So that was... So it's actually a long time ago. It was like, 10-year reunion that he would come and be playing drums again. So the band was called B-Rad's Helibus. It was named after him, and it was a helibus. Like, imagine a helicopter bus. It's amazing. So anyway, so we did that. And so that was, I think, they were quite immediate and still hooky kind of songs. I just didn't have the vocal ability or had much experience writing. But I think the basics of songs that were somewhat listenable were there.
And so who were your influences back then?
I think I liked... It wouldn't come out of the music, and sometimes it never comes out of the music, but you know how like your influences are so different to what you produce? Like,
yeah.
You because you don't understand how to make it, but also you just like some things and what you're inclined to write aren't the same. Like,
and like your failure to replicate is like the interesting bit.
Yeah.
Like your take on it.
Totally.
Yeah. But like who were the people you were trying at least to replicate?
Well, I guess the big wigs of the teenage years then was your Blink-182s and your Green Days and your the kind of staple bands of that time.
The old men of Soundwave of today.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, but then you got that sound totally coming back. Like how much, Bleeding Knees Club's new single "Feel" sounds exactly like a Blink-182 song.
It does, yeah.
So, that sounds back.
Yeah.
Just had to take 10 years off. Yes, I guess it was that kind of simple stuff. I mean, up until that point, that was the first dab at originals. Like, I'd played in high school bands with someone else's writing. Up until that point, I think, because none of us are very confident at vocals, we'd just been playing in a theme song band that strictly played theme songs.
Like the Pizza Hut jingle and...
Yeah, the Pizza Hut jingle was there.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat theme was there. Power Rangers theme was there.
Ah.
Yeah, because one of the guys could totally shred, so he could do the tap solo.
There was so much shredding in that theme song.
There's a lot of shredding.
There's not enough of it these days. So did you ever play gigs in these high school bands, or was it just all in the garage?
You'd play PCYCs, that was the common thing.
Yeah.
Or the high school battle of the bands, which would happen once every 6 months. And then there'd be a talent quest you could also enter. But I was always in the not the best band in high school. I was always in the one that would come second. It would just be out of 3 bands. So yeah, it was good times being at a small state school in the burbs.
All right, so you went to uni. What did you study at uni that you didn't finish?
Started in education, went to business, ended in public relations, didn't finish anything. I think maybe 3 years in there, but didn't finish up on anything.
So did you have any idea what you wanted to do with your life?
No, I just knew that was what you're supposed to do, I think. It was just you're supposed to go to university.
You're supposed to go to uni, yeah.
You're supposed to get a degree and you're supposed to get a job that pays some money.
And so you went to uni with Shane and Simon from DZ.
Yeah, so
That's
uni
where you
did
met
serve
them.
a purpose.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Put you in contact with those guys.
Yeah.
So did you start a band at that time, or was that only later?
Well, I can tell you when I met Shane Parsons, it was it must have been end of 05 or start of 06, and we were in a tutorial together. I was just this guy looks pretty cool. He was he had a Triple J bag on, a satchel bag.
Satchel bags, man.
And I was this guy's a musician.
2005.
Yeah, 2005. I'm just this guy's a musician. I'm a musician. I just knew he was a musician. I'm going to talk to this guy because I didn't know any other musicians. My pool of knowing people that were in music was very limited. And so, I don't know, through a group work and that thing, I began talking to him. We just kind of hung out on campus and talked music. And at the time, he was playing in a Brisbane band that was a very post-punky kind of Brisbane band. They're a great band. They kind of sound like a mix between Interpol and who are those responsible for Love Shack?
B-52s.
B-52s, yeah. It was B-52s and
Interpol.
And Interpol, yeah.
That's an interesting combination.
Yeah.
So at this point, the music you guys were into, was this more indie rock by this stage?
Yeah, totally. Shane Parsons is the greatest indie rock guitarist there is. He just doesn't play that music. So he was a total boss. So it was we were writing very time appropriate stuff, but we had a real mixed bag set because we were all so new to writing. And we for lack of subject matter as well, like a few of the songs were actually just written about Mortal Kombat.
So was this band Down Forward Punch?
That was Down Forward Punch,
Down Forward
yeah.
Punch, yeah. Named after the move. Was that a Mortal Kombat move or a Street Fighter?
Well, it was a Street Fighter move,
Fighter
but
move.
you could also, the combination also existed in Mortal Kombat. So
And so you were playing in... How many bands were you in at this point? Just the one or...?
yeah, it would have been. Or come around 2007, I joined Ridgeback County, which was Harley Young's like writing project. So it was very southern rock country
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Were you
So,
drumming? Or?
I was playing bass and doing
Bass,
backing
yeah.
vocals.
And finally in 2008, you formed Velociraptor with Dan and Shane.
Yep.
And so that was initially just a three-piece, correct?
Yeah, so it was just me, Shane, and Cy. And I'd kind of come about seeing them one night because, like, we'd had this Down Forward Punch thing, but I wasn't in a very good place in my life. I wasn't a happy person, and I just couldn't get my shit together. So we practiced a bunch, but never played any shows. And then from there was a bit of a break, I guess. I joined Ridgeback County at some point, and then I saw those guys out, and they were drinking one night, and their band at the time, which was Denzel, had just called it quits because the drummer had left. And so that was kind of my chance. Like, I had all these home demos I've been working on for years. Well, not years, but years of home demoing, but only like, X amount of time invested in this particular batch of songs that I thought could be a band, which was, Velociraptor, which came about. It was like, a very juvenile pursuit of, how cool would it be to be in a band named after a dinosaur, especially a dinosaur that's real tough in Jurassic Park, So yeah, I saw those guys out there drinking one night because their band had just finished. I kind of brought up the idea of maybe playing together again, and I sent them some demos, and they're like, "Yeah, this is great," because the demos were way tough. It was really the tougher sound when it was a three-piece because it had to be louder and more brutal to be as brutal as it is now, just based on the number of people that are just shredding pop.
So much more of the garage. Just like the real garage.
Totally, and it was
sound.
completely bass. It was completely more Hive style.
So who were your influence at this point, starting Velociraptor?
It's pretty much just the Hives, really. It's just like, man, Hives are the coolest band in the world, and they are. They still are.
They are.
The coolest band in the world. So it hasn't changed my opinion of them. I've just developed other influences as well, but it was strictly like three-piece Hives.
And so you were playing stand-up drums when you started and singing? Yeah. And so where did that sort of idea come from, to play standing up rather than get a drummer and just sing?
Well, we'd tried out a few drummers. Like, I knew this really great drummer who all he did was drum and had a magnificent kit, and just, he was all about drumming, but he never played in a band. And so we tried him out, and it just didn't work. He didn't know what was appropriate. So for all his drum knowledge and all his intricacy at playing, like, he just didn't know how to drum appropriately or simply enough for the style, or loud enough either. He couldn't thrash. He was too technical.
Yeah.
So that didn't work. We then tried out Jesse Hawkins, who you may know from Tiger Beams and also in Velociraptor now, to be our drummer. But he wasn't particularly good at playing like straight beats at the time, I guess, to be able to just play like your basic rock beats. Like, he was very much a self-taught drummer, very much his own brand, but it didn't fit with what we were trying to do. So that didn't work either. And then one day I was kind of like playing Tony Stark in my garage, and I was like, wait a second, if I raise the drums up and stand, I could play and sing, and it would be entertaining. Because my thing was, I didn't want to be that drummer front man that sat down, because I thought it's not very exciting. And so did that, raised the drums up, learnt to drum standing up, which isn't so much learning as like pushing through the physical barrier, because it's very tiring to play drums standing up.
I imagine, especially on the kick.
Yeah, the kick is just like, but then once you adjust, you're adjusted, and it's fine. But it's that initial kind of time, like the first couple of shows, especially like screaming your guts out at the same time, you're just exhausted, like sweat fest. Or Sweat Quest DSV. And then, so that's how we got to be the standing drums and the three-piece.
You had the guys from DZ in your band, but they started to get busier and busier. So you recruited some more people to help when they were out of town, right?
Yeah, so because at some point it was starting to go good. And by going good, I mean pretty much the hierarchy of Brisbane music was, you would bust your ass to get a Monday night at Rick's, And then if Rick's approved, you'd probably have to do a second, like a follow-up Monday or Tuesday. But then if you did good from there, you get a Wednesday or like the mighty Thursday. And then if you did good on the Thursday, you could get a Saturday. So when I say things were going good, I meant we could get Saturday nights at Rick's.
Yeah.
But we'd occasionally have to turn them down because DZ were too busy. So because we'd been playing with Velociraptor as a three-piece, we'd met like the guys in Running Guns. We'd met Strange Attractors. One of the bands part of that circuit, Johnny Wreckage Appreciation Saloon. Yeah, I guess that was kind of the bands we were pulling from. Me and Jesse had probably just started doing Tiger Beams in the background, like as an idea. And then, yeah, so we were kind of like at that point where we couldn't play these shows, and, you know, Michael Fletcher and James Boyd and Joshua Bird were super keen to play as well. So they kind of formed the away team for what would be when Shane and Si were away. But the first night we went to play a show with the six of us, so that, you know, we could essentially train them on stage. We trained them, like we put them up like halfway through the set, and we're like, hey, all right, so you know these few songs, just play along, get yourself around it. And then after the show, we were like, this is amazing. Like 6 people, it was great. It was chaotic, it was beautiful. I can't imagine it only playing with 3 or 4 should Shane and Si be away. And it's just me and Josh and Fletch and James. So we were like, we had to go on another recruitment drive, get some more people, so we can, at our minimum, always be 6. And then so Julian James had just come into the fold at the time because Fletcher had met him at a party and kind of, you know, stolen him over to play in Running Guns. And so, yeah, we got Julian in, and then, you know, Lauren and Jesse and Rowan and Dan came along pretty quickly too, because Sulphur Lights had been one of those bands that had just kind of joined our fold of hanging out, because we were essentially all just kind of hanging out together on weekends, getting drunk, going to barbecues, or variants of barbecues, whatever we used to have at our house in New Farm. And so those guys joined the band as well. And then the last edition was Corey. So that's kind of how it built to the 12.
Chronologically, where are we by the time you've reached your full strength of 12 members?
End of 2009.
2009,
say, like
yeah.
Summertime 2009.
You said earlier that your early sound was very garage heavy, but that sort of had a shift when you wrote the song Hey Suzanne.
Yeah, totally. That was kind of the changing point, because it was like the most like 60s pop song that I'd written. Nothing else was really super 60s until then. And then that kind of changed everything, because then I just wanted to write more songs like that, but still find a way to make them viable as a bigger band, but also to be at a party tempo and viable for gang vocals, that many guitars, so super simple, and just, I guess, really blatantly hooky, because you've got to get hooks in there if you're going to be making a wall of sound, otherwise it's just noise. So it has to be simple enough that people can hear it through the mess sometimes. Yeah, so it's more strategic than it sounds writing for Velociraptor. Yeah.
How did you go from being Brisbane's biggest band to Brisbane's best live band?
I don't know if we're the best live band. I think it goes DZ Death Rays, Violent Soho, maybe there's a couple of other, then maybe us. I think we put on a great show. I think, like, I just can't imagine, I just think that, like, it's a next level thing when a band puts on a show that's completely different to their recordings and more a very alive kind of show. So I'm happy with what we're doing. I think we're doing a great thing. But the path to getting there was just a lot of shows, I guess.
So was it hard to figure out exactly how to wrangle 12 people?
Oh, we still can't sometimes. Like, if it's 1 a.m. and, like, you know, if the shows run late and we're on at like 1 a.m. and everyone's been drinking since 8, like, it's shit house. But we're just lucky that we're lucky enough that those nights usually we're in Brisbane, and people who have supported us along the way know all the songs in the set. So if it's a bit sloppy, as long as the drum beat's there and there's some vocals people can hear, I think you can still enjoy it. So, yeah, we're definitely Brisbane's. I think we're right up there with the live acts, but I think we're still also we're a wild card. But that's fun.
Triple J started to show some serious interest around the time you released In the Springtime. Was that sort of the turning point in terms of getting national interest?
I think so, yeah. Within the Springtime, we didn't think that, like, that wasn't even the song that we targeted to put out on that. Like, we didn't know how anything worked in music, and we were like, if we just put out an EP, we didn't even think about, like, that you should put singles leading up to it or whatever. I mean, we had Hey Suzanne because it was an old recording. It was like a bedroom recording of that was floating around. And then it was like, oh, well, if one song was going to be catchy on here, it'd be Sleep with the Fishes. So we're like, let's make a film clip. So we made a film clip for Sleep with the Fishes. And then we sent the EP as Triple J, and they really liked In the Springtime. And so they started playing that, and we didn't have a film clip for that. And it was a hard enough challenge getting everyone together to do the Sleep with the Fishes film clip, which was only a 2-minute song, 1 minute 58 or something. Oh, maybe it's 2 minutes and 2. But yeah, so there was no time to do the clip. We couldn't do a turnaround for it. And so, but it went really well. Like, it was played a lot. It was really great for us. It really helped us get the word out to Sydney and Melbourne, which then allowed us to do our first proper tour as well.
And so at what point did you get representation for your band?
Like management wise?
Yeah, Jesse.
Well, with Jesse, it was like him, and we had a co-management thing with himself and like Jesse Barbera and Alex Iverson, but Alex eventually dropped off, and Jesse took over operating it, I guess, with myself and Corey as well, co-managing with him. So we probably got management in 2010, I guess. Maybe it was the end of 2010. Actually, I think it was 2011 we got management. So up until that point, we kind of just been fumbling our way through things like, saving $100 a show or $200 a show to put towards pressing the vinyl. And the only tour we done before then was like a trip to Sydney where we got paid $120 and spent, I don't know, maybe $1,500 getting down there or something, like hiring a van and like ACOM and all that kind of stuff. So, that was good because, we were then with people who knew about the industry, which we didn't know anything about. So.
And Jesse also runs Alhambra Lounge. So was it really, really convenient having, effectively your own venue to play?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure at what point, because when he'd started, he was still running a couple of other places as well as the live music, because there was music at Tempo for Clubhouse, and there was music in the city for a while at...
Rosie's?
Yeah, Rosie's. Yeah. He used to run a thing there as well. So I think, over the last year and a half, maybe, definitely Raptor HQ has become Alhambra. So that's where we hang out if we're not playing as well.
You shot film clips there?
Yeah, multiple times. It's very handy. So it's been good to have a home base like that, like a really strong home base.
And so you're having Jesse on board also help you get some of those big supports you've got, like for Black Lips, New York Dolls, UMI?
With the supports thing, it's more so that booking agent that's come through and that kind of stuff, which is Rebecca Young at Artist Voice. And we got on Artist Voice maybe end of 2011, and we jumped through a lot of hoops to get on as well because no one believed that we could be a viable touring act.
Just logistically, or in terms of like the unpredictability we were talking about?
Both. Like logistically, definitely. They couldn't see how it would be feasibly financially, and also because we were really unpredictable. Like even the time that they came to watch us in Sydney, it was like our last show of the tour, and it's one of the last times we had Alex with us as manager too. And we went and bought a few bottles of scotch, and like we're necking that, and to the point of excess, not great, and played this show that was just intense. Like, I mean, I face planted it on stage. I was singing on the bar at one point. I was singing on tables. In the last song, I just left, and I was dancing in like the hallway with some guy, and I gave him a tambourine, and we were dancing to the band playing Batman. And that was like the show that we shouldn't have messed up, and we did. And so that put us back like 6 months in getting a booking agent. Which I was devastated. Like I was hating on myself for like a week or two afterwards. I was like, it's such a foolish thing to do when it was that close to getting a booking agent, which would just make things so much easier. So then we were kind of like, for the next 6 months, kind of at their beck and call to be like, hey, we need you to play this show in Sydney. It's like, you're going to lose a lot of money to do it, but we need to see that you can do it. So we were doing these kind of things. It was just driving me nuts. I was like so stressed out because all this stuff that was happening was on me financially. So I was putting the whole band's flights on credit card, and then knowing that we lose money in the Sydney show or whatever, or Melbourne show, but then hoping that we could recoup it over the process of a Brisbane show or a couple of Brisbane shows, or something might come through.
And what were you doing for money yourself at this time? I mean, you were really busy in a lot. We'll get to the rest of your bands a bit later, but you were playing in a lot of bands by this time.
Yeah, for money, I was still doing the same thing I've always done, always working, just, slaving away for minimum wage. Yeah, it was tough because the other thing I didn't do, I think I might have gone on the niece scheme as well, which is a good move. But the problem with that was I had such limited space to move, because when I went on that, I hadn't gotten powerful credit cards. The first thing I got myself to do as soon as I got back into working after Nice was to get big credit cards, so that if you have to make it happen, you can make it happen. So it was really tight because I'd maxed my credit card and I didn't have much coming in. So it was really tough to balance these things. I borrowed money off my mom, and I paid her back, but I might have, at that time probably borrowed money and not paid her back for 4 months or something, while I was trying to get Raptors to be, viable. And I even borrowed money from my girlfriend at the time to get a hire van so we could do the tour. It wasn't good. It came up okay, but it was a real stressful time. So behind the scenes of Brisbane's most fun party band is that it was really tough to do.
So at this point, while you were trying to woo a booking agent, did you ever consider making changes to the band, like cutting down on members maybe to help out logistically?
I can never cut members. I think the thing I probably should have done was just been well, actually I didn't have the luxury of doing this because the booking agent kind of had the stipulation that we'd have to take at least 8, and they were booking us and telling venues so that they could, to get us over the line, would be they'll bring at least 8 people. So we have these times where it's we can't get 8 people down there because everyone else is busy. We have to get ring-ins as well, just to fulfill whatever this contractual obligation is. And since then, we've changed how that is as well. We just be look, Velociraptor is like the Avengers. Occasionally, some of them are in other cities or towns fighting some other kind. Other dimensions. Yeah. Exactly, fighting some other kind of menace. So you'll get whoever we can afford to send, or whoever is around to send to the particular crisis of show that you want us for.
And sometimes that's Thor, and sometimes that's Aquaman.
Exactly.
Or Ant-Man.
That's exactly right. It's a mystery combination every time, but it works. And I think the least we've ever played a show with is 5 people, and we did it in Wollongong because someone had to fly back early after the Sydney show. It can be done. We can present as a 5-piece, and it still works. You just get me. I'm always the straight man front man. You just get Boyd really in his zone, and he just humps everything, and it's good. It's still entertaining. There's only 5 of us, but it's still entertaining. And the songs are there. It's not it's not just the live thing. There's definitely songs there anyway. So,
while all this was happening, while you're trying to get a booking agent and making your name as a live band, you've been pretty much recording, sort of on and off, non-stop for most of the time, haven't you?
We did, yeah. But the thing was, we had so many failed attempts at recording, which is why recording took longer than it did. World Warriors should have come out a year before it did. Wouldn't have had the same track listing, but there should have been a release. But it just wasn't, because we tried recording with a few other people and it just didn't work. And then we finally decided to go back and record with Cam, which did work.
And he recorded the EP?
Yeah, because he recorded the EP.
Yep.
We knew that worked. I don't know why, we just thought we'd try other things. Foolish kids. Cam was definitely the way to go. Got a great sound, did a great job on the record. Yeah, so that's why World Warriors came out when it did. And because of money as well. We just didn't have the money to finish it.
You sent it to Birkfinger to get mixed. Do you think, was that a conscious effort on your part to sort of shine it up a bit for radio?
Yeah, I think so. It's just nice to hear someone else's fresh take on it as well. I think we had the songs recorded very reflective of how they were played, but it did need that kind of shine, or somebody else to look at it and be oh, hey, maybe you don't have to have everything going at once, maybe more dynamics, or this is how I see it. And I think, Birkfinger did a great job. He only ended up mixing maybe 4 of the songs on the LP, and Cam did the other 4. Both guided with my input, but Birkfinger took Cynthia, which was to be the lead single, to a place that it probably wouldn't have gone otherwise. He put sampled hand claps in there, which is not something that would have happened ever otherwise. So where it's a very warm recording than the original one that we had, the original mix. The one that he did for it was there's a bit more space to it, and it sounded a bit poppier, and yeah, so it was good, and it's nice to see what someone else sees in the songs.
Are all 12 of you actually on most of the recorded versions of the song?
Funnily enough, yes.
You are? Wow.
I just gave everybody like we did the basics of the track. Like some of the tracks I played drums for, some James played drums for, but everybody got their, 8 hours in the studio, 4 hours, whatever. They wanted to lay down their guitars and their vocals. Yeah. And then we kind of, mixed it and cut from there, and yeah.
A common comment is that it doesn't sound like all 12 of you on the record. Do you think that's it's important for it to have the full effect of the full blast of your live presence, or is it okay to have it sound a bit different?
I think I'm personally all about do what's best for the song at all times, and that goes with what bits should stay on the recording. Just because everybody played on the recording doesn't mean every part of their playing might have made the record. Somebody might have mixed it out, Berkfinger might have mixed out a couple of guitars in spaces, and I'm always about what's best for the recording, and recording and live are such different things. If you're going to record a pop song, you don't want to record it live, or you would just issue a live recording. You want what's best and most, what's pleasing to listen to, and for repeat listens as well. It's kind of cool to have that authentic thing where it sounds lo-fi and terrible, that kind of comes out now. Terrible is a bad word. But just that kind of really abrasiveness that is the live sound, that's not as pleasant to listen to as something that's well recorded and well balanced. And I think it's good to do the song justice, a good pop song justice, by recording it well and then making it really entertaining by playing that same song live. It's the same structure, it's the same everything, but it's just more vibrant and alive, and to give it that different kind of life. Otherwise you'd just stay at home and listen to the CD.
In Velociraptor, you have a very distinct sort of stage presence. There's a lot of energy to it, obviously, but there's also kind of a stillness to it, and there's a bit of sort of posing and posturing, and it's sort of a barely contained madness that seems like one of the things that was inspired by Pele from the Hives. How did you sort of develop your onstage presence?
That's I don't think we've never taken time to figure it out. It's just kind of evolved over time. There was obviously that kind of nervousness when you first do it. When I came off of drums to do the frontman thing, I think everybody's just kind of developed their own way they like to play and what's the most enjoyable way for them. And I think, as far as I can say, based on myself being when I'm fronting, I don't know what I've seen to base it on. It's just kind of what would you do? What feels natural? It's kind of how would you express this if you had to involve your body in it, but still be contained to the microphone? So I guess it does come up to be a posturing thing, I guess. And when you've got those free moments when the mic's not on, and you can go into something else, but otherwise you kind of you are stuck there, but you've still got to figure out some way to do something other than just kind of stand there and whatever you do it with confidence.
So you try not to think about it too much?
No, I've never analysed it. I don't watch it back, and I just,
I want to talk about some of the other bands you've been in. So you joined Running Guns in 2009, which is Michael Fletcher's band.
Yep.
So did you replace James on drums?
Yeah.
Yep. So Fletcher was the main songwriter in Running Guns, is that right? So,
yep.
But did you have much input into the music?
I get to choose my beats, but I still let Fletcher override me if there's things he wanted, because as a songwriter, I'm really particular about drums sometimes too, when I want them to be a certain way. So I'm just dude, tell me what you want, I'll do it. Otherwise, here's what I think is most appropriate for the song, and here's what I think would make it interesting without being too complex or anything. But just the simple ideas that I think are most appropriate. And a lot of the times he'd agree, yeah, that's great, what you're doing is awesome. But if he was I just want it straighter, I just want a real simple beat, then I'd tone it down and we'll do what he likes. So my musical input wasn't great, but I didn't want it to be. I just wanted to be a good and appropriate drummer for the band, so I could help him with his own songwriting and his own kind of musical endeavours and dreams, and same with the other guys.
Being in so many bands, why were you in so many bands? Was it just fun hanging out with your mates?
Yeah, I think this kind of thing is you see all these bands play, and then you're like, I wish I was in that band. Like, I saw Running Guns play at Step In one night. I was like, shit, I wish I was playing that band. It's really exciting right now. And then the opportunity came up because James Boyd was leaving to go overseas, and he did for a year, or close to a year. And while he was away, I became their drummer. And then when he came back, I stayed on as drummer. But it was an exciting band. Like, Julian James had just joined and started writing as well, and his songs were exciting, and it was just cool. Everything was working in that band, and I wanted to be a part of it. So that's how that came to be. Other times I've just been asked by people, and I'm not very good at saying no. But also because I really do want to help, like songwriter friends of mine, I really want to help them achieve what they want to do as a songwriter, because I remember when I couldn't get anybody to play songs with me, like when I just had bedroom recordings and I'd show them to people I knew that were, musicians, and they just didn't, either said nothing nice or just didn't say anything. So
you've kind of got empathy for people who are looking to get some collaborators together.
Totally. Because it's just like, you end up spending a lot of time doubting yourself if you don't have anybody that wants to play, I guess. And that's horrible, because you could be making really good things, but you don't know, because you're interpreting how the world reacts to it differently. And join Lovely Legs on drums, however long ago that was, because I truly think Alex is a great songwriter, and I wanted to help out, and I knew I was capable of playing what was really appropriate and really good for that music. So it was really great that he asked me to, and so I guess that's how I'm playing there.
And the Strange Attractors was another one that was made up just about entirely of Velociraptor members?
Yeah. Well, Strange Attractors was the band we pillaged the most for members, I guess, in the beginning of Velociraptor, because we took Lauren, Josh, James and Fletch, and Corey as well. So, yeah, Strange Attractors eventually became a band that was just Raptor members after Josh kicked out everybody else and put other Raptors into the band. So, yeah, Strange Attractors. So that lasted a while. And I was living with all those guys at the time as well, so it was really easy to jam in the lounge room.
But that's sort of tapered off now, that band?
Yeah. JB doesn't really write much anymore, which is unfortunate. Or maybe he does, but he makes a lot of kind of like electronic kind of stuff, which is a big departure from what Strange Attractors was. So yeah, I mean, it could play again, but now we've lost Fletcher to Berlin. James is about to move to London. Josh is going to stay in London for a bit. So maybe there'll be a reunion show one day, but Strange Attractors is technically out of the equation.
Now, Tiger Beams is still going pretty strong. You've just released a new single, in fact, with a pretty awesome video. So did Jesse approach you to be in this band?
We met when I was 21 at a 21st birthday. And it was kind of just like out of talking that night that I found out that he played drums and I played guitar. And he'd kind of written a few songs that he'd written them on drums and didn't know what to do with them because he couldn't play guitar. So we met up one day and had a jam, and I put some guitar down to the songs he had at the time. We formed a band that I don't remember what we called the band. I know the evolution of the band became Colour Colour, which never played any shows either. And then eventually we settled on Tiger Beams and then played a show. So yeah, how that came to be was just hanging out and just trying to make what he had into songs and recording them so he'd have a personal record of that kind of stuff. But then it worked out that it made sense as a band and it was kind of cool and different.
So is there a new album on the way for Tiger Beams?
There'll be a new EP.
New EP, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the band moves slower than I'd like it to, but it's just because we don't have any money in that band to pull from, so we can't really record. But we will. We'll get there. And yeah, we'll put together an EP and you'll probably see the EP at the end of the year.
And has Jesse always been sort of the main creative force behind that one?
Yeah, I think because if I wrote for it, it would sound too much like what I already do.
Yeah.
And he has a very distinctive way of writing. He has a very distinctive voice, and he writes based on drum beats, which is awesome because I don't write that way. But, Paul Simon, for most of his career, wrote that way. Paul Simon's a genius. And so it's cool that he writes like that because you already get a good feel for what the song's trying to accomplish based on the drum beat, which is rad. And then the other good thing about not having to worry too much about writing is that I just get to shred, make up riffs. And then that's fun. For a guy I'm not a skilled guitarist, but I like to be a creative guitarist. So That's
And the
fun.
new single, Beat It, it doesn't even have anything but drums and vocals for the first like minute and a half.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it just has this crazy riff come in.
It's like, it's a stupid song. I don't think it works until you've heard it like 10 times, and then it's like, oh yeah, it's a good song. But we were too close to it, and we've heard it so many times that we think it's a great song. I just think the world needs a lot of exposure to it or something, because it's not. I don't know. I guess you've heard it. Has it?
Yeah,
Has it got immediacy to it, or is it like oh, you need a few listens?
No, it grabbed me on the second listen, probably. The first, it was like, what the hell? Because it sounded a bit different to the stuff I'd heard from Tiger Memes before.
Yeah.
It's got this sort of Euro disco mid-2000s kind of thing to it,
Yeah.
I think. Like,
Electro Clash.
yeah. And it's got this sort of compressedness to it. It's a bit DZ,
Yeah.
a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. It was just not what I was expecting, but it's really awesome. I love the bit where the guitar just suddenly starts panning
Wild pans.
and then goes back to the center. Love that. Oh, you were also the last drummer in Cam Smith's band, Mount Augustus.
Yeah.
How did you come to join that band?
I had just been spending a lot of time with Cam because I was recording a lot with Cam at the time. And when his other drummer left, he just asked me to join. He already had a set of songs ready to roll, so there wasn't any time needed really to develop anything that was there. He already knew what he wanted, had it all recorded, and knew what he wanted played on it. So I just listened to recordings, and it was easy from there.
How long were you actually in the band before it ended?
Maybe a year.
A year. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the way Mount Augustus ended?
It didn't end on a triumphant note.
No.
I can't remember what the last show we played was. I hope it wasn't the X and Y show, because we played a few songs and then it just ended. Cam walked off stage and it was the end of the show.
Yeah.
Did you be there that night?
I wasn't there, no. I think I saw your second last show, which was at X and Y. But no, I missed your very last show. But
Was that the last show then? Do you know what the very last show was? Did Cam say what the last show was?
I can't remember the venue, but I remember I wasn't there because I had something else to do. And now I'm really pissed I missed it because I missed his walk-off. So were you surprised when it ended like that?
No, I don't think the band was particularly working, because I was very much wanted to prioritize being a songwriter, and so drumming for a band was pretty low on my priority list. Even though Cam's a super good friend and I wanted to help out, but I have that kind of yes man thing where I'll just keep. If I'm asked, I'll do it, and I'll continue to do it, and I won't bail on things.
Mr. Nice Guy strikes again.
Yeah, but I've gotten better at that. Over the years, I think I'm getting
saying
better.
no to people.
Yeah, I think I'm getting. No, I'm not getting better, but yeah. So I think, and only because with that band, because I love Cam, but he knew exactly what I wanted for the songs, right down to exactly what the drum beats should be. So I had sheet music that had the drum beats on them, and so. Usually my space as a drummer, I still was yeah, okay, well, I'll be a creative drummer, but it was very much set in stone what I do. So I don't think it was working because I got to help out Cam, but it wasn't working because it didn't serve me as a songwriter or as a creative musician.
So your style really isn't to be that constrained?
No, because I think of myself as a songwriter and not as a musician. There's plenty of people who just play drums and are keen to do that. That's what they want to do, and that's really enjoyable. It just wasn't what I wanted to do, and it was kind of just torn because I really wanted to help him out because he has such great songs, and as you'd know, because you're such a big Mount Augustus fan, the guy's a genius. That Reverend Storm song is just fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Who else has written an epic like that locally? That's crazy. He's definitely a next level genius. But yeah, it just wasn't serving my creative purposes, I guess. And I think even though that wasn't voiced, I think that kind of tension can just be felt in a way. And I think Cam wasn't getting what he wanted out of. Well, I don't know. He would have told you how it was going. But I don't think he was getting what he wanted out of the music, and I don't think he was getting the recognition that he deserved from the music as well. I think maybe that might have played on things as well. I'm not sure.
He actually said to me that he was interested in sharing the songwriting with you and Dan, but that you guys weren't that interested in that you would rather just sort of be his sideman?
Yeah, time consuming wise, I think I'd rather just have been a clock in, clock out drummer, which I was.
Yeah.
Because I was definitely focusing on being a songwriter, but trying to get my own songwriting projects up and running.
Yeah. I think also just because of how many times he'd had to start again every time he'd lose a drummer.
Yeah.
It just started to wear on him. And he said, he started playing solo shows as well, and he just found them so much more fun.
Totally.
Just personally.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of your bands take inspiration from various genres of 1960s music, but Teen Sensations arguably goes the furthest. You've got your surf pop harmonies, lyrics about chicks and T-birds. You've got coordinated outfits, and you've got your Facebook posts even that are in character as like some
Damn the Dean.
some undergraduate in some stifling 1960s university. Why exactly do you take the themes of the 60s this far, particularly for Teen Sensations?
It's a very good question. I don't know. I think aesthetics is quite fun in music. Like, I think that's another thing that differentiates the recorded work to the live show, because aesthetics is, I don't know. I imagine if I walked into a bar and there was a bunch of guys dressed as 1960s Beach Boys playing surf pop music, but originals, I'd freak out. I'd be like, this is exactly what I wanted to see in a band.
Is that something that actually happened to you and you decided to do it?
No, I think we just had to do it so that, like, when there's other people similar to us walking around, if they ever see that, they'll freak out too. So, got to make some positive, emotions into the world. The aesthetics thing is just, it's cool. I mean, we all idolize the Beach Boys like crazy, and so it's just kind of cool to go that one step further, I think.
So do you have like much ambition for Teen Sensations as sort of a serious band, or is it all about the fun for this one?
It's definitely about the fun, but I feel the songs are really good. The song's really good, and it's like the band we can afford the most to record well, because there's no real timeline on it. And yeah, we're recording kind of for fun and for our own kind of personal interests, just because we want to catalogue these songs. But we can also, because we split everything 4 ways, which is the first time I've ever been in a band where we split costs, we can afford to do things right as well, which is really satisfying to take a song. Because a lot of the time when you record a song, you're like, well, that's like 80% of what I dream for the song, so that's close enough, and that'll do. We can put that out. This one's like, you can take it to 90, 95, 98% of where you want the song to be, sometimes 100.
I want to talk about your solo work that you put out under your own name now. So originally you had a couple names that you attached to it, Jeremy Neale and the Stallions of Truth, the Jeremy Neale 5, that was probably my favourite. But eventually you just settled on your own name. At what point did you start to do things outside of the rest of bands?
That's kind of, I don't know, because I'd always had songs on the side that weren't appropriate for anything I was playing in at the time. I guess playing in Ridgeback County got me into the mode of writing like a folky singer-songwriter, I guess, in a way, with that kind of country vibe that kind of transcends well to the singer-songwriter. And so I'd had a catalogue of songs from that kind of period of time that I'd kind of been adding to over a few years, and just wanted to record them and play them to see if they would, take on with the general public. I guess I idolized the scene of like the mid 2000s, the country folk singer songwriter that was like dominating the Troubadour, and when the Gin Club were just like absolutely killing it, like that glory time in Brisbane music. It's just like I idolized that, and I was like, I want to be involved, but I didn't have the guts to do it. Didn't have the guts to play under my own name, and didn't think my songs fit well enough, even though retrospectively they did. I just couldn't see it at the time. So I was like focused on a very like Paul Simon, Ben Queller kind of sound, and I started doing that just because I wanted to get those songs out in the world a bit. Started playing acoustic around the place, and eventually formed a backing band as well.
And you put out a solo EP in 2011 of these folky pop gems that Cam Smith recorded.
Yeah.
But you can't get it anymore. It's not on any of your websites, and you don't really play this style of music anymore. Why is that?
I buried it. I kind of had like a kind of crisis of like, like I watched a singer-songwriter play one night. I didn't actually enjoy it. And I was like, maybe this is what's happening when people are watching me. I was like, am I taking songs that are all about me being introspective and dealing with my own issues, you know what I mean? Like how the singer-songwriter stuff is kind of, it's number one, it's serving you because you're getting this stuff off your chest in a melodic form.
It can be that sort of self-therapy.
Yeah. And then you're not really putting it through a thing of saying, hey, do people really want to see this, or am I just trying to get this off my chest? You know, when people come out to see music, you know, am I just being selfish, and am I just subjecting people to this because it's an extension of my emotions? Whereas I write heaps of different genre stuff, so I guess why wouldn't I play the most publicly enjoyable stuff, I guess, in public, and then save the other stuff for my own therapy, I guess.
So the songwriting you do in your other bands, is that a lot less personal than the sort of stuff you're doing on your folk project?
No, it's all still personal. I think it's just like different emotions cause different kind of songs. And sometimes, I guess folk music allows you to use a lot more lyrics sometimes. And sometimes you need to describe things like that. But other times you just need to describe the sentiments, and you can do it all in, you know, maybe a total of 25 words across a whole song or something. So I guess that's a big difference as well, as like the amount of lyrical content and, you know, how you want to say something, like physically, verbally, how you want to say it. Like if it's an aggressive song, then it's nice to have a band where you can say it quite aggressively.
But so basically you stopped doing your folk songs because you were self-conscious about it just being about you rather than about putting on a good performance?
Not really. I wouldn't say it was because I think there was something that was a crisis of like consciousness that I thought about afterwards, like retrospectively. Like from that point, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I actually enjoy this, and I don't know if other people are enjoying this. And then if I don't really enjoy it, if no one else is enjoying it.
Did you ever get any feedback to that effect, that people weren't enjoying it?
No, but I definitely had played a show to like 4 people at Douse Bar one day, and I was like, this isn't working. And Dom Miller was there that day, and I said to Dom, it's time to change the game. And I says, I'm going to change the game. And then I did. Well, I changed my game.
And at that point, you started writing more 60s pop hits.
I had a bunch of songs that I was going to form another band to do, which was going to be called the Honeywell Brothers. And that was going to be essentially what the solo band became. So that was going to be a bunch of guys in turtlenecks. And I'd written maybe 3 songs for it. And I was like, you know what? I much prefer these songs I'm writing now for this than what I have in my solo catalogue. Because the solo catalogue was songs that were stretching, solo catalogue at the time was songs that were stretching back maybe 4 years or 5 years. And were no longer relevant to me as a songwriter, I felt as well. I just really felt that they shouldn't go to waste because they were still technically good songs, so they had to be played somewhere. And I had these songs I much preferred writing, I really enjoyed. And so I started putting them into the set until at the point as such that the whole set could become those kind of songs, which is where we're at now.
And how would you define the sound of your Jeremy Neale solo stuff compared to Velociraptor?
They're definitely still in the same vein. They're definitely still guitar band work. I guess Velociraptor is more modern garage, party garage. The solo band's more delicate, precise 60s pop in ways, but also takes influences from other things. Like the song Darlin' sounds a bit 80s nostalgic as well, you know,
with the sax.
With the sax, yeah, and those like it's got like 80s keys in the background as well. So like, it gives me the solo stuff enables me to do a lot of different stuff. If I wanted to do something, I can make it happen. Whereas Velociraptor is still within some constraints.
Do you think the songwriting is like technically just a bit more sophisticated in your solo stuff because it's easier to express to just 3 other musicians rather than 11?
Totally, and I can be. Not that I really like to differentiate from arrangements too much, but like I could if I wanted to. Like I can make a weird bridge come out of nowhere if I wanted to, and it wouldn't confuse everybody because it's kind of a precisely focused project.
So your first single under your solo name was Winter Was the Time. Did you record that one yourself?
Yeah, that was me and GarageBand.
Yep.
Yep.
Are you really interested in that production side of music as well?
I really enjoy it, but I'm not a very focused person, so it's really tough for me to, if I'm not paying someone and sitting in the studio and being conscious of time, then I take too long to do things, and I'll get distracted by the internet, and you know, because my recording studio is also my bedroom. It's like, no, you're not going to record yet, Jeremy. You got to clean your room. and you got to do these other things. So it's just like, no, set aside time, go somewhere and record is the only way I can productively do things. Winter Was the Time was the exception because I demoed it and I was like, I actually really like this. I'll just kind of add a couple more things on it and it's a recorded song. So just worked. It worked that the drums were simple enough for me to demo them and not muck them up too much in the first take so that was usable. Because I don't really have much patience for redoing drums at home either. Whenever I demo things, it's just like, first or second take and I'm done. It kind of came together accidentally, but good.
Winter Was the Time came out early 2012, didn't it?
Yeah, like 1st of January or 2nd of January. It was like my fresh start to the year.
And since then, over the past, not even year and a half, you seem to have put a lot of effort into your solo project. You've had 4 singles. They seem to have gotten more and more airplay on Triple J, and you seem to be playing, bigger and bigger gigs with your solo thing. Is this like a really conscious thing, or is it something that's just been picked up by the wind?
I guess because it has the ability to move so quickly with the solo project, I could feasibly have a single out really quickly if I wanted to. Like if I wrote a song I believe in, I can take it to recorded form and release form really quickly. So that's really good. I think that's what's worked to my advantage with it, because I can always have like the most relevant and the best song I've got at the time. So I can always put my best foot forward. So I think that's been good. I just think as well, I'm not afraid to sink the money that's necessary into it. Like I've definitely accumulated an amazing credit card debt from recording and touring the solo band, but it's been worth it. It's kind of coming up really well at the moment. Like the singles, as you said, have been received better and better each time, which is really exciting. And I think it's comfortable as well with the solo thing because I try and keep really far ahead of it, because I'm the only person I really need to consult when it comes to like what I want to release and what I want to record. I can keep really far ahead and always have like the single I've just released now. I've known I was going to release that for maybe 7 months or something. And I've already recorded the single that's after this single. So it's really refreshing and nice, as opposed to to have a proactive band instead of a reactive band, whereas Velociraptor's always like, shit, we got to get a single out like in the next 2 weeks. It's like, what are you doing? And then we got in there, we recorded Cynthia, and then we like put it out like a week before radio shut down for summer, like it was just like, hurry. So, that kind of franticness doesn't necessarily need to exist as much, and that's cool. And so it can afford to be delicate and well thought out, and that's kind of exciting to take the songs up the next level.
So the current single, In Stranger Times, was that always intended to be a duet with a girl group, or with Go Violets in particular?
Definitely intended as a song for a girl group, and like Go Violets are one of my favorite bands in Brisbane, if not my favorite band in Brisbane. So it was like really awesome that they said yes, but always intended probably, when I'm realistic, for them. So I'd written it with slightly different lyrics to give to a girl band, like a fictitious girl band that I wanted to have that I could write for. But that was getting a bit egotistical to assume that people would want to form a band under whatever I decided to call the band, and then would want me to write their songs for them. Ridiculous. So I gave up that notion.
Lennon McCartney did stuff like that. They gave people their cast off songs all the time.
Which is great. It's so cool.
Bowie did that with Mott the Hoople.
Their
only hit. So
Cast Away From.
Because he heard they were going to break up, and so he wrote all the young dudes for them, and it became huge.
Whoa, that's awesome. It's like, guys, wait.
Yeah.
You can be a band.
Are there any bands on their last legs in Brisbane at the moment that you would want to save with a last-minute genius pop gem?
Oh, man, if anyone... No, see, that sounds conceited too, if I'm like... But I just, like, I'd like to help, and I have lots of songs in the catalogue, and if you think it would suit, you just let me know, and you can have a listen, and if there's anything you want to take, you can use it, and maybe it'll help instead of calling it in. Maybe your current songwriter left. Let me know. I got some songs. We'll work on it. It's going to be fun.
I think there doesn't seem to be as much, work for people who just write songs anymore. I mean, like back in the day, you had like, these songwriters in New York that would just go up to the record companies. Carole King, when she was a teenager, just wrote all these pop hits years before she had her own singing career. Yeah. And we don't seem to have that accessibility for songwriters now. They can't just palm off their songs.
I think the thing is even when people are learning to write songs, it's insulting even for someone to suggest, hey, I wrote you a song. I think there's that kind of mentality. It's like if someone's like that, then they're saying your songs are no good, therefore take one of mine, you know?
I guess so, but I don't think all musicians are necessarily that hung up about being songwriters.
Yeah.
I think there are people out there who, you know, might just be great at singing or something like that. And like, I mean, we could save them from a career on, you know, The Voice or something if we write them songs before they think they have to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that'd be cool. I think maybe there needs to be a chance for more open dialogue between people that are looking for that. Like, maybe it's just a taboo kind of thing. It's frowned upon that a band, you know, like there's so much pride in being an originals band, and therefore if you're an originals band that has someone else writing your songs, are you therefore still an originals band? Because someone else is writing your songs, you know what I mean?
I think so. If you're not, I mean, because the songs haven't been performed before, so it's not like someone else's version of them. It's your own version.
But then
the first version.
But then you're just an alternative pop star because, you know what I mean? Like someone that wins The Voice gets a song written for them. Yeah. And that song's never been performed anywhere else. It was written by them, and they're a manufactured pop star. I know they're obviously going through
I think
a
the
bunch of steps.
process is what makes it different.
Yeah.
As opposed to doing the hard yards and actually getting out and doing gigs before you're thrust upon the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a great way of doing that, I reckon, would be like to go out to open mic nights and stuff. Because like so often you see like, you know, these 19-year-old kids with amazing voices just like playing shitty Jack Johnson covers or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
You should just like go up to them and be like, dude,
start your originals career. Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be genius and possibly a little creepy.
Yeah, way creepy.
Yeah. You used to run a semi-regular event at X and Y Bar called Scotch Night at the Sean Connery.
Yeah.
What was that about?
Well, you know, at the time, I just switched over to singer-songwriter mode, and there wasn't anywhere to play because Troubadour had closed down. There was actually nothing. There was very little for singer-songwriters to play acoustic. So I knew lots of people who were singer-songwriters. So I started the night, hosted it. The name of the venue was downstairs X and Y, but it was called the Sean Connery, and it was Scotch Night because Scotch was only $5. And how classy! And I put up pictures of Sean Connery around the venue, and I had nicely lit candles, and I bought a PA, and I brought that along and set it up every week. It was good. It was a good chance to see a lot of people play, and a lot of times sometimes I'd take people from bands that had never played solo and got them to play as well. That was cool, and I thought I was kind of adding to the culture of the scene for a little bit. But then, you know, Black Bear Lodge opened, so then there was a place again, and Douse Bar came up, and all these other places kind of popped up, and it was like there was a scene again, and there was no need for me to put on a thing on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock.
Your work here was done.
Yeah, my work was done, and it was quite a stressful thing to do because it was hard to get people to come out that early, and you know, and you'd feel bad because you had to put people on so early, but there wasn't really many people there for the first act, and yeah, so it ran its course, and it filled the void in Brisbane while there wasn't that happening. And now Brisbane's safe again for acoustic singer-songwriters.
For now.
Yes. Scotch Night will return.
So is that something you'd be interested in going back to, that sort of fostering new talent by organising nights at venues and stuff like that? Or even would you ever be interested in running your own venue like Cam does? I
don't think so. I don't think I deal with the pressure of it. I don't think there's enough bands to fill a big venue 4 nights a week. It's a lot of stress to kind of think about overheads and getting that many people to come out to watch bands, because there's X amount of bands in town and Brisbane is full of good bands. But if we were a united city, as in if all of our music was in the Valley or all of our music was in West End or whatever, then it would possibly be feasible to have a large place. But then you've got kind of lots of bands that don't work together on a bill. And then there's the aesthetics of venues. There's heaps to consider, you know. It's not as simple as it should be. You really need it to be the venue to be something else like the rest of the week. Yeah, totally. Like Southside Tea Room. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's why Lumber works, because it's not just bands. Yeah. It's like bands that book their own show, that book the venue on a Friday night. The venue puts on bands on a Thursday night, but only a couple. And then on Saturday night, it's a dance club. Mm. And it's open on Wednesdays for special occasions if a band wants to play then or whatever else, and it's open for all ages shows on a Sunday sometimes. But that's feasible. Then it means that when they do put on bands, there's a good turnout, but you don't have to stress about bookings constantly. Even for a brief period of time, I was booking bands at Oh Hello when that opened. It was really stressful. It was really hard to get a solid lineup in a space that big every week, because your target demographic is 18 to 20-year-old kids. So not only are you pulling the best bands you can get, but they're the best bands that are in that certain aesthetic that would appeal to that age group as well. So it's not like you're picking your favourite bands to play, because that's not what the kids want to see.
There's actually a fairly narrow range of bands that you could...
Yeah, and it was really stressful to book that every week. And then you'd be like, well, sure, why don't you get these guys? It's like, well, we can't. They just played a Lumbra the week before, or they're playing their own show at Rick's on Saturday night. It's like, it was really tough. So I don't want to be on that side of things. I think the way that I can foster new talent is if I put on a show of my own and I get to pick the supports, I usually try and pick a couple of bands that are just starting out to put on that I know will still fit with the evening. Like I still like it to be somewhat upbeat pop, and but I think that's the only way I can really do it at the moment, is to like put those fresh upstart bands on a lineup that I'm on.
You've got your single launch this Friday at Alhambra, and it's you, Go Violets, of course. And then there's two bands opening the night that I haven't heard of. Is this the sort of situation, like bands you've found that fit well with you that you've chosen? Yeah,
totally. I mean, like I always play with people that I like, as long as I can control the lineup. And Go Violets is, well, obviously with the single, and I think they're an amazing band, and it's good to have somebody else on the lineup that people know as well. But then that lets me play around with the opening slots. So then there's Emerson Snow, which is Jared Mann, and he's a really super talented guy. He's like 18 and he just writes genius stuff. So I got to put him on opening. And then Rinse, who I saw, one because the drummer in my solo band, Liam Campbell, he plays drums for them. The guitarist in my solo band plays drums for them. And they're like 80s new wave. And I saw them at the Lumbra had like a Battle of the Bands competition a few weeks ago. I saw them play there and I was blown away. So it's like, you guys should play. Yeah, so that's how that kind of worked out.
Are you pretty independent as an artist in terms of managing all the behind-the-scenes stuff? Or did you have much of, like, you said before you now have a booking agent and a manager for Velociraptor, but like overall with all your projects, do you still do a lot of the behind-the-scenes work? Yeah,
I think like the split I have with Jesse Barbera as my manager is that, well, I guess we co-manage everything, we manage together. So like Velociraptor I still help manage. With the solo stuff, it's me and him managing, but I kind of do all the background work and he does all the business work. Like he does the meetings and he makes the phone calls and does the big business stuff that I can possibly do.
Yeah.
And then I do all the day-to-day and I do the creative side, I do the logistics, and I finance stuff, and I handle all the admin really, and then he does the big business stuff. So it's a good working team like that.
How many bands are you in right now?
Because Running Gun Sound just ended with Fletch going to Berlin, it's 5 bands now.
How do you possibly find time to do all this and work a job that pays you money?
It's pretty ridiculous, man. Like this weekend is just messed. Like Friday night, I got my single launch. Well, Thursday night, Tiger Beams are playing with Matt and Kim at the Zoo. Friday night, I got my single launch. But then I got to go to work early and work all day Saturday. Straight after work, Raptors have a show. Then Tiger Beams have a show. Then I got to go work at Black Bear Lodge. And then I got to wake up a few hours later and go to work at my day job. And then I fly out like early morning on Monday to the UK. So it's just like there's no rest time in there. It's a brutal slog, but like it's a fortunate brutal slog. It's like this is okay. Like
it is, but you've been doing that sort of thing for years by this point, haven't you? I mean, like, and it's only ramping up as your bands get more and more successful. Like, aren't you starting to burn out at all?
Yeah, I definitely was like a month ago, and I kind of scaled work back a bit, like because the financial demands of being in all these bands and recording and touring is like pretty extreme. So you're gonna kind of have to keep smashing work as much as you can. But I kind of made a decision about a month ago to just put things on credit card and hope that things really work out later. So
you're hoping for like a really big break?
I'm hoping just, I guess, just to get publishing for my songwriting, I guess. So I think that's my main hope, to be kind of appreciated as a songwriter and be acknowledged for that, and then to have someone believe in me enough to give me advance to continue doing that.
So Velociraptor's bass player Michael has moved to Berlin now.
Yep.
The drummer James has moved to London.
Yes, yep.
So what does this mean for the future of the band beyond your European tour that you're about to go on?
After Europe, we've got George Browning, who drums in Teen Sensations and the Sulphur is joining the band as a live drummer.
Okay.
And we'll probably find a way to incorporate him into the band as well. Just doesn't aesthetically work with the 12 panel thing so far, the 12 members, 12 letters. But I'm going to figure out a way to do this. I mean, have Jesse Barbera as the 13th Raptor, and he's even in like the booklet to our World Warriors CD. Bospera.
Yeah.
The Akuma figure. And so George will become the 14th Raptor. And we'll tour with a compact unit of probably 7, and that'll be a consistent lineup. And if we can't have the 7 do the show, we just won't do the show, pretty much to those kind of degrees anyway.
So you said you've got your European tour coming up, and you've said you have your next solo single all set out. So how far in advance do you really plan big promotional pushes like that?
That's a good question. I've never had to, until this single, I've never had to think about the promotion so much, besides the fact that I would, burn a couple of copies of singles and post them out to people, and then put things on Facebook, and then hope for the best. But this last single, actually, I've paid a publicist for, so that meant I had to be a little more prepared to have all the things ready that they wanted when it was kind of go time. And I think
there does seem to have been a whole lot more press for this one than ever before.
Totally. And I can't say enough good things about, it's been through remote control publicity with a guy called Adam Christou. He's amazing. He's very on the ball, and it's great because publicity is something I know nothing about, besides obviously putting the CDs in envelopes and putting things on Facebook.
So if we zoom out to the world map of Velociraptor and your solo stuff, what does that look like for the next 12 months?
After the UK tour, well, because the solo stuff's mostly tied up, the EP's pretty much decided on track-wise, just needs to be finished and then put out. Then I get to shift focus to Velociraptor again. I've written 7 songs for the album. I'm willing to give up those if some of the other guys have songs that they want to put in instead. I've just kind of made a healthy start on it, I think. This will be interesting to see because I'm trying to get all the other guys on writing for the new album as well. So we'll just you'll see us again over summer. We'll put out a single probably in December. And then we'll be back on force. So you'll see a lot more Velociraptor, I guess, early next year. And I'm excited to go back to being on for that. I just wanted to get the solo EP off my chest. And then I'm really excited to go back into Raptor mode as well. So there'll be a lot of touring out of that. I think we'll go back to... I'll take the solo band to Great Escape Festival next year.
Yeah, I was going to ask, can we expect to see you on any major festivals in the future?
Yeah, well, hopefully something goes well enough that somebody asks. I think Velociraptor's always been a band where festivals are almost afraid to put us on because of everything everybody hears about the band, I think.
In a way, it would be the ultimate festival band, and in a way, you can't worry about what it would lose from being in such a big open environment. And
you feel that, we did Pushover Festival, and you feel that as well. It's just this is really weird because we should be closer to the people than we are. Yeah. Even
at when you played the Old Museum supporting UMI in December, it seemed like that the room for once really swallowed the band and it's usually the other way around.
Totally, yeah. And so that's the thing to consider as well. But I think given the time and energy we'll put on this next record to refining it and to making those songs work dynamically, I think that'll change everything. I think the set at the moment is quite party all the way through, and it can work really awesome in a venue the size of Alhambra, but at a festival, as you said, it's just that thing because you can't surround them with noise. You can't create that environment that you want to. So I think the focus on this next record is going... It's still upbeat, it's still kind of party, but it's very much more focused and therefore holds up on its own over any environment. I think that's the aim of this, or one of the aims, I think, of the record is to make it work in all places.
Have you started recording it yet?
I haven't started recording yet, no, but have some strong demos. So
Are you going back to Cam again, or are you looking for another producer?
I think I'll work with Sean Cook on this. We'll work with Sean Cook because I've done all my solo stuff with Sean, and we get each other really well. So
you're massively popular here at Triple Z. Cynthia was number 1, the Hot 100 last year. Darlin was number 4. Do you feel like at this stage that Brisbane is like stage complete and you're ready for bigger things?
I don't know because, well, to put things in perspective, when Darlin got announced at number 4, whoever the announcer was announcing it took the piss out of it. So he wasn't across the music. I think he liked it retrospectively after the song finished, but made a few too many jokes before it went to air.
But like the thing is, I mean, it's voted for by the listeners,
yeah, that's
regardless
true.
of what an individual announcer thinks of it. And I mean, you play shows in Brisbane all the time, and they still are absolutely packed. So like, do you feel like there's now more worlds to conquer beyond the Sunshine State?
I don't know. Like, I'm such a Brisbane patriot as well. So like, I'm not moving. So there's like, I guess there's only so much you can do on the world stage and still stay in Brisbane, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think there's still more to do in Brisbane, and it's nice to kind of focus on like doing strong adventures to Sydney and Melbourne, and I'd like to get to Perth to do stuff as well. And I'm really happy to keep Brisbane as like a home base and keep just adventuring to places. So it'd be fun to go to Great Escape. It'd be fun to do South by Southwest, but it's really important to stay here, just because I'm a bit of a homely type as well. Like, I can't leave my family either, and people I can't leave, and I like the city. It's a good city.
All your bands are here.
Yeah, all my bands are here, unless they're all going to come on the road.
Well, I mean, if you took one of your bands with you, then most of your bands would be.
Well, that's true, but we can't tell the public that. We have to pretend every time that they're different bands with different lineups, you know? Fake names, pseudonyms, like, the tricks continue.
In April, you performed at We All Want To's Take the Lead concert, where they got different singers singing We All Want To songs with the band backing them. So does this sort of thing, do you feel validated by this sort of thing when people approach you to be part of something like this, or when you ask to speak on a panel or some stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like, it was always an honour. Like, We All Want To was such an honour too. I totally bombed that performance though, or I felt I did, just because I can't really sing in tune very good. Like, I can't pitch things. I can't.
Is there a reason you used a backing track and not the band?
No, that's how they wanted to do it. Yeah, but unless it's like blasting in my ear, I can't pitch stuff. So I felt really bad about that performance. But yeah, it was a totally honour to be involved, and I really like talking on panels as well. So when people ask me for that, I'm like, yes. So it's nice to be given that position, and I think because I've been at it for quite a while, like, I definitely understand the process. So I think I've got something to offer when I get to talk on those kind of things as well.
Oh, like, yeah, when you did the songwriting panel with Sam Cromack.
Yeah.
Was that Powerhouse thing or a Big Sound?
That was Little Big Sound. Yeah.
Little Big Sound. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was good. That was a really good moment. Like, I don't know how much wise words we passed on, but I remember it being funny. So that's good. That's half the battle.
You're touring with Sam with Ballpark Music for their Thank Yous tour. How do you see Velociraptor comparing with Ballpark Music in terms of where you sit on, like, what you offer, like, Australia as a Brisbane band?
Yes, that's a very good question. Like, I think up until this point, we've been quite niche in a way. Like, there's still pop songs, but they're not as we haven't really hit that accessibility. You know, there's like there's such a small percentage of the population that we're, I guess, that are open to what Velociraptor do, whereas Ballpark Music seems to have nationwide appeal. Like, it seems to connect with a lot more people.
Do you think that's because of the appeal of the music itself, or just because of the way they've gone about things?
That's a very good question. I think it's because of the music. I think in a way, like, Velociraptor, recorded wise, quite a one-dimensional band. It's all stuff that sits in the same kind of basket. We haven't given it, besides the track Surf City Raptors on the last release, like, there's not really been much variation outside of Party Garage. And I think, like, being a more strategically focused band the ballpark are. They've been able to go in lots of different kind of, timbres and dynamic and all that, and that's what makes for an interesting record, and so it works.
Is that something you worry about, that Velociraptor may become a one-dimensional band that only ever has this one sound to offer people?
Oh, no, don't worry about that. That's why we've got the new record. So that's why it's exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get a much broader taste of things on the new record.
I think so.
Yeah.
From what's going on so far, it's good. And I think it will... I don't think it's ever going to be nationwide accessible, but I think it will be accessible to a lot more alt pop kids, and that'll be cool.
And you'll sort of carve out your own niche.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than trying to appeal to everyone.
Yeah, totally. Because the band's not designed to appeal for everyone, and it doesn't matter that it doesn't. It's better to just do what you want to do. But it is exciting to be able to give it the time and focus in the recording process to give it the best chance of connecting with, I think, more people, just because people that might write you off because it was too shittily recorded may in fact have enjoyed the song if it was recorded differently.
Yeah.
So it's kind of important to get that ground where, I think the song appeals to more people, just sonically, not just the song itself, but how it's presented.
And I think already you've come a long way, from your early demos. I was listening to, I don't know how old it was, but it was a demo of Junior Astronauts the other day.
Oh yeah, I can't get that off YouTube.
To the album version.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole nother thing.
Yeah. It was a digital drum kit on that first.
Really?
First one, yeah.
Wow.
That's how I used to do everything, digital drum kit.
Are there any other genres that you haven't yet explored in any of your bands you'd be interested in the future?
The only other thing I really want to do, besides I really like chiptunes and electronica, that kind of video game sounding electronica. I really enjoy that. That style of dance music is quite cool. Lo-fi dance music, I guess, is cool. But I feel like I can probably start wedging some of that in with Tiger Beams.
Yeah.
So that'll be okay there, I think. But the other thing I really want to do is an 80s new wave / new romantic kind of band. I've always really wanted to do that. I just haven't had the time or the people that were on the same wavelength or
the outfits.
Yeah, the outfits. The high budget outfits, They're pretty smooth outfits in new romantic music. I think I wouldn't worry too much about the aesthetics on this one though. I think it's just a time issue at the moment. I've got quite a few songs written for it, but just not the time to pull it off.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself an ambitious person?
I think I am an ambitious person. I think I'm a daydreamer though. I daydream ambitiously, but my ability to get things done isn't great. I'm super super ADD kind of kid. I just jump around from one thing to the next, I just this, this is cool. Oh, I'm distracted by this. What were we meant to be doing? Damn it. I could get so much more done if I was focused.
Is that on a micro level in terms of you might be, recording something and then, you got to go look something up on the internet, or on a macro level, I'm in this band, now I want to start this band, now I want to be in that band?
It's more micro. It's the day-to-day stuff that really it's really quite frustrating, how long it can take me to get something done because I got so distracted trying to do it, it's really frustrating. So it's I'm not living up to my potential, but I think I'm still doing good things.
Are you proud of what you have achieved so far?
Yeah, I am. I'm proud of what I've achieved, and I'm proud of what I've achieved, and I'm really excited about the future. So it's probably a decent place to be.
So what are your grandest ambitions for the future for your projects?
I just want to get balance into my life a bit more, so I don't have to work as much and I can spend more time writing. I probably write once a week, and that sucks because I'd love to write every day. It'd be awesome. Because if I'm theoretically, by mathematics wise, what I'm creating now, if I was spending 5 times as much time doing the creating, then surely the songs would be 5 times better, or at least 5 times more plentiful. And so that would be good. But I think it's just my main hope is to get that in balance, and then to write more and record more and release more.
Do you think that sort of balance is possible in the current Australian scene, in the current financial climate of how much money bands can make?
That is a good question. I'm just kind of taking it away from what bands can make, more so just hoping for an eccentric billionaire to bail me out. So, You know,
Clyde Palmer on board.
yeah, like Clive will just hear like in Stranger Times, he's gonna be like, "Who did this?" And then he'll be like, "What's he doing slaving away for minimum wage? Here, take this, buddy, and go and record an album." Like, thanks, Clive.
Maybe he'll mistake Velociraptor for an actual Velociraptor and then put you on his golf course.
This is fine. That is okay. The payers will be there.
In the time that you've been around on the Brisbane scene, how do you think it's changed? And do you think it's for the better or the worse?
I think it's definitely changed for the better. I think from the scene where I find myself playing most often, I think a lot of positive stuff has happened in terms of, and I do credit like Jesse Barbera a lot for this, like his movement and his group of people for bringing the club night to Brisbane. I think that's done wonders for making music, for lack of a better word, sexy. You know what I mean? Like for getting like young people into seeing bands.
For getting the uni kids out on a Thursday night.
Yeah, essentially, and then inadvertently exposing them to bands, and then perhaps they'll connect with that, and they'll connect band culture to party culture, and you know gives it a youthful vibrancy and a youthful aesthetic, which is important because if it's not, then it just doesn't appeal so much to touring bands then as well, because touring bands, you know, they need to, I guess Brisbane needs to be seen as like a vibrant and like youthful hip city from an outsider's perspective, so that it becomes on that same kind of platform that Melbourne and Sydney are presenting in a way. Like, sure, there's heaps of untapped hidden culture, but you've got to present in the loudest way possible so that people, you know, thousands or hundreds of kilometres away will hear what you're doing.
Do you think that's like being a deliberate thing that Jesse and that sort of people have been doing, like to cultivate that kind of culture?
Yeah, I mean, Jesse really cares about music, and he really, for a guy who wasn't born here, cares a shitload about Brisbane. So like, it is his home, and he's always wanted to make it he's wanted to make it stand up on par with like Sydney and Melbourne, what they have going on in terms of just that kind of party music culture, I think, and I think that's really important. Like, I know other people be like, we don't need that as part of music, but I think it's really valuable. I think it's important I think it's an important stepping stone to get people into music that might not have been otherwise. And then later on, when they're no longer 18 or 19, then they'll have a really solid idea of what they enjoy in music, and then they will be the future of Brisbane music scene. They may go off into different tangents. They may go into way more alternative kind of genres or subgenres of music. But I think it's important to be getting the numbers through, because Brisbane has never been a big numbers kind of scene. And the only way that music's going to survive is if there is an active audience, you know, coming along to shows as well, and telling their friends and posting about it on Facebook and those kind of things. And lots of people may not agree with me, but I think that's how it is.
If you were to give a piece of advice to yourself when you were starting out Velociraptor, what would it be?
It wouldn't be anything to do with the number of members. It would be not to stress so much, and to not get so worried about things that didn't even matter at the end, and like to not freak out about how important it was to play a show that wasn't that important at all. I think that's all. I think I just tell myself to chill out. It's cool. It's fine.
And what is the most important part about playing music to you?
That's a very good question. See, I mean, you're supposed to say fun, but I think the most important thing about music for me is creating music. So, actually, I don't know. Music's so tough because it doesn't stand on its own. It becomes your lifestyle as well. Like, all your friends become people who play music or enjoy music. So I guess the most important thing about music is the life that it's given me now and the people that I know because of it. And it's not always fun. It's a lot of serious business sometimes. But the things that you get when you take everything away and you've just got the friendships you made and like the experiences you get to have, like, that's probably the best thing about music.
Jeremy Neale, thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks, Scott. Thanks very much. Thanks, man.
Awesome.
Is that all right, man?
Yeah, man, that was all right. I feel like this needs an epilogue, like at the end of an 80s movie. Velociraptor released their self-titled album the following year and have since put out a few more singles. The band has slowed down a bit as various members have gone off to have kids, but they still play every now and then. Jeremy went on to fulfill his new romantic pop aspirations on his solo releases Let Me Go Out in Style in 2015 and Getting the Team Back Together in 2017, which both featured a more 80s sounding style of pop. And did Jeremy ever find that balance between life and music? Go listen to Gimme Empathy episode number 9, The Reach Out King, to find out. Corrections and amendments for this episode. The Konami code is up, up, down, down, left, right, BA. And All the Young Dudes was not the only hit by English glam rock band Mott the Hoople. That was a bit uncharitable of me to say. It was their most successful song, peaking at number 3 in the British charts, but they did have another 6 singles in the top 50 throughout the 70s. Thanks for listening to this episode. I do recommend you go and listen to the other interview I did with Jeremy back in episode 9 and see what changed for him in the years between interviews. It's quite interesting. I've got some news. So I'm taking a little bit of a break. So for the first time since the podcast went fortnightly, I'm going to be missing the next one because the next scheduled Tuesday is going to be January 1st, 2019, and it's not a good time to be putting out a podcast for a few reasons. First, I'm going to be away the whole week before. I'm going to be covering the Woodford Folk Festival for 4ZZZ, and that's not very conducive to editing podcasts. Second, on New Year's Day itself, I'm going to be a bit busy because I will be part of ZZZ's Hot 100 Countdown, where we count down our listeners' favourite songs of the year. So tune into that on 102.1 FM or online for zzzfm.org.au. The countdown, I think it starts at midday or something. I'll probably be on in the early evening. Oh, or if you are in Brisbane, you can actually come to that because it's happening live in the beer garden at the Triffid in Newstead. Also, I've got music shows. I have gigs. Another 4ZZZ thing. The Z end of year party is happening this Saturday, the 22nd of December, at the Bearded Lady in West End. The Stress of Leisure and Bad Bangers are playing along with a band I'm in, Adele Pickfance and the Chandeliers. Come along to that. And then the day after, on the 23rd, we all want to have our only gig of the year at the Junk Bar at Ashgrove. We're doing 3 sets, spanning old shit to a big dollop of our upcoming 4th album. So come see me play the bass on that one. This episode was an interesting one. It's I always like going back through the Only Talking Sense archives, and if this is an interesting time capsule for you, then maybe you should go talk to a mate or just talk to yourself for an hour. Just bung it on your phone about where you're at with your life, and then listen back to it in 5 years, just as a little project. It's interesting. I will see you in the new year, 2019, for the time travelers. Until then, stay festive.